Hello, lovelies. I hope you're doing well. Everything is all right over here. I This house is a little over 100 years old, so everything in it is either broke or breaking. So I've been keeping pretty busy. Seems like as soon as I get one thing fixed, something else breaks. So, and in my mind, I'm still 18 and can do anything I want to do, and then I pick up a paintbrush or a screwdriver, and I realize pretty quick that I'm not as strong as I used to be, or as strong as I could or should be, based on circumstances beyond my control. So, what ought to take me, you know, a few hours sometimes takes me days, but I get it done, and it's been keeping me busy. I I started really fussing over a book a little while back, trying to. The idea of a book in itself was daunting. I'm used to writing 3 or 3.5 minute songs, and I would bleed for those. So the idea of doing a lot more writing than that was just kind of intimidating. But I finally sat down to it and knocked a big chunk out of a bunch of stories and things. I've always had a problem with dates and chronological order, so I thought I'd rather write anything than to write nothing. So I just started writing stories. And some of those stories had all the trauma and things that I went through as a kid, and like an idiot, I didn't think that it would affect me, but apparently it did. I started having nightmares, if not night terrors, and I had to kind of stop and back away from it for a minute. I got too in the middle of it. A therapist friend of mine told me, you want to do it kind of like you're an observer watching it pass in the river. You don't want to jump in the river. And apparently I had just jumped in the deep end and thought I could just, giddy up, and it wasn't the case at all. And a couple of days ago, I wanted to read through some of that and see if any of it was any good at all. And I came on this section about dogs, and I don't know if it would be a separate book, its own book, or a chapter in a book about my life. I don't know, but the idea was all my dogs, because I feel like we learn a lot from dogs, and they teach us about unconditional love and so many other things. But and if that was the case, I would have every dog, that I had. But this particular part had to do with my first dog that I ever had, named Ginger. So I thought I would read you a little bit from that, and I have a song that I think just fits right in there with it. So I thought I would read a little bit and play you that song. I strategically placed my iPad here where I don't have to look away or down. So we'll see how it goes. But between the way I talk and, I am a ninth grade dropout. So, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I'll do okay. I'm just guessing, but I imagine it was about 1972. We were in a brand new Cadillac. That was before S.D. Meadows made the transition from Cadillacs to the Lincoln Town Car. He had on some light gray slacks, old man slacks. You know what I'm talking about. Some kind of polyester blend made for comfort, and it was the style of the day. The kind where an old man could sit down in a chair and you could see everything in his front pockets, and a big old man ball that would just kind of stick out to one side or the other, or any damn where it wanted to, for that matter. A white button-up, short-sleeved shirt, cowboy boots, and a Stetson open-road cowboy hat riding cocked to the left on his head, revealing a shock of salt and pepper wavy hair and a chew of red man tobacco in his mouth. He would roll the window down periodically to spit, and then roll it back up. Mama had on some kind of an orange or a yellow pantsuit or jumpsuit or whatever was in style, a little scarf around her neck, cat-eye glasses, and as always, her hair was done up. It looked a little bit like fluffy golden blonde cotton candy that had been wrapped delicately but with precision and placed on her head like a redneck crown. She always wore it up, and you never saw her hair any other way. We all know the higher the hair, the closer to God. I know it was hot, as it was always hot in Mississippi. We were driving in the country one day, probably going to or back from Uncle Jerry's house. Papa was driving and Mama was in the front seat. I was in the back seat, probably looking out the window or reading a comic book because we didn't have cell phones back then. We were in the middle of a bend of one of those long and winding, curvy country roads in Mississippi, and all of a sudden, Papa said, "Look up there. That's some old dog on the side of the road." When we pulled up, we noticed it was just a puppy, and we could still see the tail lights off in the distance of the car that had just dropped it off. I don't know what kind of person could take a dog out in the country and drop it off in the middle of nowhere, knowing that it's probably going to die. The only kind of person that might be worse than that are the ones that would throw a litter of puppies in a cotton sack, tie up the top, and throw them in the river. It happened more than you would think. Papa was gonna keep on driving, I suppose, but he messed up and slowed down enough for Mama to see that it was a puppy. And that in turn gave me time to scream out, "I want a dog." I didn't have a dog, and I guess fate was on my side, or the dog's, but we both lucked out that day. Mama opened the door on her side of the Cadillac, and that dog jumped in the car and climbed over the seat between them and straight back to me and started licking thank yous all over my face, and I fell in love that very minute. I always felt like a throwaway, so I understood how that puppy felt. I may not have had the power to give myself the feeling of belonging, but I could damn sure give it to a dog, and I intended to. She was some kind of mix. She was black and white, a mid-sized dog on the smaller side, a beautiful brown-eyed mutt. She was perfect. The only dogs I ever owned were mutt mixes. Something about a registered canine, I don't know, just feels kind of uppity. As we were driving off, Papa said, "Well, a dog needs a name. What should we call her?" I guess I had been watching a lot of Gilligan's Island, 'cause I yelled, "Ginger," with the excitement of a boy with a new best friend. When we got home, there was a lot of excitement there, but there was also a good dose of reality. Mama and Papa had come from nothing, but Papa had worked his way into some money. That meant Mama had a lot of nice things in the house she had previously never been able to afford, including, but not exclusively, an entire room filled with Chinese furniture. It was like a museum that we couldn't enjoy because Mama kept the door closed and locked so none of that furniture would be ruined. Glass cabinets filled with trinkets from Asia, hand-carved end tables and coffee table with scenes of ancient China, rickshaws and castles, and peasants carrying water in buckets hoisted over their shoulders. It was a sight to see. There was a throne that was said to have come from the Forbidden City in Hong Kong. It had scuffs at the base of the legs where the king's boots would have left a mark on the legs of the chair. There was also a beautiful white couch that kept plastic on it the entire time that it lived in that house, which had to have been at least 30 years. Where Mama and Papa came from, there was no such thing as an inside dog. There were only outside dogs. So Ginger spent her whole life outside the back patio. She had a nice dog house with a little bed in it, and I would stay up late and get up early to spend time with Ginger out in the yard. The irony is not lost on me that even though Ginger belonged to the family, she never belonged enough to come inside the house. Everything has a place, including unwanted children and throwaway dogs. As is the story of life, everything changes. Children become teenagers and puppies become old dogs. Ginger was a part of all of my early years. Somewhere we picked up another dog, little bit. Another little black and white mix of some kind. She looked a little like she had some Chihuahua in her. I don't even remember where the dog came from. In my memory, she was just there one day, which wound up being a blessing in disguise because as I started becoming a teenager, I became a little more interested in teenage things and a little less interested in those dogs. It makes me happy from this side of those lost years to know that Ginger had a friend to keep her company when I didn't go back there as much years later. I learned that Ginger knew a trick from one of my daddy's rare visits. That man had a way with women and dogs. I was out in the back playing with Ginger and my daddy came out. He wanted to love on the dog, so he kind of tapped his hands on his thighs and Ginger jumped right up in his arms, pretty as you please, where he cradled her and began to scratch her between her ears. I didn't know she could do that, but from then on, every time I saw her, we would do that trick. Daddy did it, so I wanted to. God, I worshiped that man. He always had a joke. He always had a fast car, and he always had a woman. 2 of the 3 almost killed him, at least once. Years fly by when you're young, although at the time you think everything is moving like molasses on a February morning. I was watching Papa shave one day and I looked at him in awe and wonder. He had one of those silver metal razors that men used to shave with. The top would unscrew and open on the top, and it had a 2-sided German razor blade right in the middle. A sink full of scalding hot water with steam coming off of it, and a face half covered with shaving cream. The other half he had already shaved off. I can smell the menthol right now as I'm reading this. I said, I can't wait till I can shave like you. And he smiled and stopped patiently enough to tell me that by the time you can shave, you will wish that you didn't have to, son. He said, time moves slow at your age, but it goes way too fast when you get to my age. And the last thing you want to do, that I've used that time doing, is shaving. Well, I didn't believe him, but like so many other things he said through the years, he was right about that, too. He took the blade out of the razor and put some cream on my face and let me shave. I was like Papa. There was another time when my daddy was around, some other day, some other house, but I was still too young to know my ass from a hole in the ground. And I snuck into the bathroom and put on some shaving cream, and I went to work with my daddy's razor. I was going to show him how much I was growing up. I didn't know how to take the blade out of the razor, and my poor daddy walked in on me, and I was cut from up one side and down the other. The menthol in the cream had made it where I couldn't feel the cuts until later. He about had a heart attack. He wasn't used to having a kid around, and I'm sure this incident didn't help him want one. I did eventually get older, and I did get to a place where I did have to shave, and I hated every minute of it. Rarely did I ever shave that I didn't remember the day me and Papa shaved together. Mama called me years later and told me Little bit had died. I drove over and walked her out to a special spot out in the woods that only me and her knew. I swear I think I could walk you to it right now, these years later. I dug a small hole and I put her gently in it. I cried a little. I always cry when I bury a dog. I said a few words to her and I left her there to rest until I would see her again one day. Good girl. A few weeks later, I went back to see Ginger. It seems like the older I got, the harder life became, and I missed the simple things. A boy and a dog. You don't get much simpler than that. I came through the house and down the stairs to the back door of Mama's house, like I had done 1,000 times before. She was there to greet me, like she always was, with a wagging tail and a smile in her eyes. She moved a little slower, but I didn't notice it until I patted my hands in my lap like Daddy had done so long ago, and she tried to jump into my arms, and she couldn't. Now, I lost a couple of years in the hospital fighting cancer and trying not to die, but I need to say this. I didn't just run off and leave my dog. But seeing Ginger not able to jump into my lap provided a much more stark reminder of the frailty of life than cancer ever did. And suddenly I knew Ginger would not be around much longer. I decided a long walk was what we needed. I opened the back gate and we headed out into my woods. I turned around to shut the gate and Ginger took off as fast as her little aging legs would take her. I called her and she ignored me, which hurt my feelings a little, but she had her own feelings, I guess. I finally caught up to her, and I had left the backyard with a path in mind. And I tried to get Ginger to come with me to where I wanted to take her, but she stayed on the path she had chosen for herself. She was a female, after all. It all started looking familiar. It snuck up on me, and then it hit me. I knew right where Ginger was going, and I followed her down a little path, across a little creek, and then right where there was a fork in the trail, and then, as if guided by some unseen sense that I did not possess, she veered off the main trail at about 50 paces due west. There was a little hill on the other side of a beautiful white oak. She walked up to the mound. She turned a couple of circles, and she laid down right where I had buried Little Bit some months back. I said my piece. She had already said hers. Then we sat in silence for the longest time, me on a log, and her right on top of Little Bit's grave. Ginger did die not too long after that. She had said what needed saying, and I had to. And I made that long walk one more time to bury her next to Little Bit, where she belonged, outside the house. In some ways, I think I was saying goodbye to my childhood at the same time I was saying goodbye to Ginger. But I swear, a little more died every day, and I never thought the grieving would last this long. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. And hang tight one second. I'm going to pull together some things and I'm going to play you a song. All right. I had to put my headphones on so I can hear what you're hearing. This song I wrote with Levi, Lowery, and Wyette, Durrette. And it's called A Boy Needs a Dog. You could tell his eyes were aging, a little slower in the end, but he'd still get up for chasing a little trouble now and then. We grew up together, We were thick as thieves, running round, running wild. He was always next to me. Hardest thing I ever did was saying bye to my old friend. Goodbye, my old friend. Every limb needs a tire, swinging from a rope. Every hill needs a cardboard box, sliding down a slope. Every summer needs a swimming hole, jumping off a log. Every man needs a memory, and a boy needs a dog. Smiling out the window, watching Charlie and old Blue, climbing trees and skinning leaves like they're supposed to do. Time is like a river, ooh, don't slow for any man. Can't hold to the water, slips right through your hand. Sure as that old river flows, you let 'em in and you let 'em go. You gotta let 'em go. Every limb needs a tire, swinging from a rope. Every hill needs a cardboard box, sliding down a slope. Every summer needs a swimming hole, jumping off a log. Every man needs a memory, and a boy needs a dog. Every limb needs a tire, swinging from a rope. Every hill needs a cardboard box, sliding down a slope. Every summer needs a swimming hole, or jumping off a log. Every man needs a memory. Every man needs a memory, and a boy needs a dog. Yeah, a boy needs a dog. Ooh. All right, there you go. You could tell his eyes were aging a little slower in the end, but he still got up for chasing a little trouble now and then. We grew up together. We were thick as thieves, running round and running wild. He was always next to me. The hardest thing I ever did was saying bye to my old friend. Goodbye, my old friend. Every limb needs a tire, swinging from a rope. Every hill needs a cardboard box, sliding down a slope. Every summer needs a swimming hole, jumping off a log. Every man needs a memory, and a boy needs a dog. Smiling out the window, watching Charlie and old Blue, climbing trees and skinning knees like they're supposed to do. Time is like a river, don't slow for any man. Can't hold to the water, it slips right through your hand. Sure as that old river flows, you let 'em in and you let 'em go. You have to let 'em go. Every limb needs a tire, swinging from a rope. Every hill needs a cardboard box, sliding down a slope. Every summer needs a swimming hole, jumping off a log. Every man needs a memory, and a boy needs a dog. Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope your life is filled with simple pleasures. I think sometimes we can get so busy aiming towards something that we think is important that we lose sight of the most important things that are usually just about in arm's reach. Our aging parents, or our husband, our wife, our kids. And we're out there just running fast as we can go. And the one thing you can't ever get back is time. Once it's gone, it's gone. So Nothing wrong with dreams and nothing wrong with goals, but every once in a while, slow it down and take a little time for yourself. And because life is such a gift, and take a minute and pet your dog, hug your wife, hug your husband, kiss your kids, because they're going to be gone sooner than you know. And then you're going to be sitting around wondering what you're going to do next. And with that, I will bid you farewell. And I love you. I thank you so much for your support on Patreon and the kind texts and emails. I really have no idea where I would be without all of that. You mean the world to me, and there's no words that I can say that can adequately express how much you mean to me. So thank you for that, and until next time, see you later.